The year is 1066. A cold, biting wind howls across the fields of Anglo-Saxon England. It carries with it a sense of foreboding, a chill that seeps deeper than the winter frost. Inside the newly consecrated walls of Westminster Abbey, a king lies dying. His name is Edward, known to history as the Confessor. He has ruled for over 2 decades, but his long reign is now drawing to a close. The kingdom holds its breath. Edward's final moments are not just the end of a life, they are the end of an era and the beginning of a storm. Edward the Confessor was a man caught between 2 worlds. The son of an English king, he spent much of his youth in exile in Normandy. He brought Norman friends and advisors to his English court, causing friction with the powerful Anglo-Saxon earls. Now, as his life ebbs away, the most critical issue comes to the forefront. Edward has no son. He leaves behind no direct heir. In the 11th century, a king's death without an heir was a spark in a powder keg. The crown of England, a symbol of immense power, would not be given. It would have to be taken. In the shadowed halls of Westminster, the dying King Edward is surrounded by England's most powerful men. Among them, one figure stands apart, Harold Godwinson, Earl of Wessex. His eyes betray both ambition and uncertainty. Harold is not alone in his ambitions. The great earls, Morcar of Northumbria, Edwin of Mercia, watch him closely, each weighing their own fortunes in the balance of power. The church too is present, its bishops whispering prayers and politics in equal measure. The most powerful man in England, a seasoned warrior, a shrewd politician. In the eyes of many he is the natural choice. Yet the air is thick with uncertainty. Edward's death will leave a void, and every man in the chamber knows that the fate of the realm hangs in the balance. Outside, the people of London gather, anxious and fearful, awaiting news of their next king. The church's blessing is essential. The Archbishop of York, Ealdred, stands ready to anoint the new king, but even he is wary, knowing that the choice will shape the soul of England. But there is a complication, a ghost from Harold's past. Years earlier, Harold had been shipwrecked on the coast of Normandy. The sea delivered him into the hands of Duke William, a man as ambitious as Harold himself. In William's court, Harold was treated as both guest and hostage. The Norman duke saw in Harold a key to his own destiny, a rival who could become an ally or an enemy. He became the guest of Duke William. To secure his release, Harold was forced to swear a sacred oath on holy relics to support William's claim to the English throne. In the candlelit chapel, Harold's hand rests on ancient bones and fragments of saints. The oath is more than a promise. It is a binding contract before God, witnessed by the most powerful men in Normandy. To break such an oath is to risk not only earthly retribution, but eternal damnation. In the eyes of the Church, a sacred vow cannot be set aside for ambition or convenience. Now, back in England, Harold faces an impossible choice. Does he honour the oath made to a foreign duke, or does he answer the call of his own people? The Witan, England's Council of Nobles, gathers in urgent debate. Some urge caution, fearing Norman wrath. Others demand a strong English king, chosen by the people, not by foreign powers. Outside, the common folk pray for stability. Merchants, farmers and soldiers alike sense the coming storm, their lives hanging on the decisions of men in distant halls. The decision is made. On January 6th, 1066, Harold Godwinson is crowned King of England. The bells of London ring out. In Westminster Abbey, Harold kneels before the altar, anointed with holy oil. The crown is placed upon his head, and the assembled nobles and clergy proclaim him king, but not all rejoice. In the shadows, some whisper of broken oaths and the wrath of Normandy. Messengers ride out, carrying news of Harold's coronation across the land and across the sea. The act sends shockwaves across the Channel. To William, it is not a coronation, it is a betrayal, a broken oath. In Normandy, William's fury is matched only by his resolve. He gathers his barons and knights, swearing before them that he will claim what was promised. The church in Normandy supports his cause, declaring Harold a perjurer. Across the Norman coast, shipwrights labour day and night. Sails are mended, swords sharpened, and prayers offered for victory. The invasion of England is no longer a possibility, it is a certainty. He immediately begins to prepare for war. But to the north, another claimant, Harald Hardrada of Norway, sees his own opportunity. England is now trapped between 2 great invasion forces. As the storm gathers, the fate of England hangs by a thread. The land holds its breath, caught between the ambitions of kings and the weight of sacred oaths. For months, Harold's army waits on the southern coast, eyes fixed on the horizon. Each dawn brings hope, each dusk disappointment. The threat from Normandy hangs over every campfire and every restless night. The men grow weary, supplies dwindle, some grumble about the endless waiting, others dream of home and the harvest left behind. Morale is a fragile thing, tested by hunger, boredom, and fear. Harold walks among his men, offering words of encouragement. He knows that discipline and unity are all that stand between England and disaster. Scouts report daily on the winds and tides, searching for any sign of Norman sails. In the villages nearby, life is tense. Farmers fear for their crops, mothers for their sons. The shadow of invasion stretches far beyond the army's camp. Yet for now, the winds favour England. The Channel remains impassable. William's fleet is trapped in Normandy, his ambitions frustrated by nature itself. But the vigil takes a heavy toll. Supplies run out. The men are desperate to return for the harvest. The winds, for now, are on England's side. Harold faces a terrible choice. If he keeps his men on the coast, they may starve. If he lets them go, he risks leaving England open to attack. The fate of the kingdom hangs in the balance. Forced by necessity, on September 8th, Harold disbands the southern army. It is a calculated risk, a moment of extreme vulnerability. Far to the north, another storm is gathering. Harald Hardrada, King of Norway, is no ordinary invader. He is a legend, tall, fierce, and battle-scarred, with a reputation forged in the fires of 100 wars. Hardrada dreams of conquest. He claims the English crown by right of ancient agreements and royal blood, but he is not alone. At his side is Tostig, Harold's exiled brother, burning with resentment and ambition. Their alliance is forged in exile and vengeance. Tostig knows the land, its weaknesses and its pain. Together they command a fleet of dragon-proud ships carrying thousands of hardened Norse warriors. And it is at this exact moment that fate strikes. Harald Hardrada, the fearsome king of Norway, has landed. The north is thrown into chaos, villages burn, the people flee before the Norse onslaught. The invaders are ruthless, their axes and swords leaving devastation in their wake. At Fulford Gate, the northern earls muster what forces they can. The battle is brutal and short. Outnumbered and outmatched, the English defenders are cut down. The road to York lies open. Survivors stagger back to the city, bearing tales of horror. Families search for loved ones among the dead. The north bleeds and hope seems lost. He is joined by Harold's own brother, Tostig. The northern English earls are crushed at the Battle of Fulford Gate. The road to York is wide open. In London, the news arrives like a thunderclap. Harold's council is stunned. The kingdom is under attack from the north, the southern coast left undefended. The king must act now. The news reaches King Harold in London. His kingdom is under attack, his northern army broken, and his southern coast undefended. Harold's decision is immediate and bold. He summons every able-bodied man, from grizzled veterans to young farmhands. The call to arms echoes across the land. His response is astonishing. He gathers his army and leads them north, covering nearly 190 miles in just 4 days. It is a brutal, punishing journey. Along the way, villagers watch in awe and fear as the king's host thunders past. Some offer water and bread, others pray for deliverance. The fate of England rides with Harold. The men march through rain and mud, driven by duty and desperation. Some recall the faces of loved ones left behind. Others whisper prayers for victory or survival. He must strike before Hardrada can consolidate his victory. The legendary Viking warrior has no idea that a royal English army is bearing down on him. The only thing standing between the two armies is a narrow wooden bridge. According to legend, the passage was held by a single giant Norwegian axeman, but the ingenuity of the Anglo-Saxons finds a way. The hero of the bridge falls and the way is clear. The English army thunders across. The Battle of Stamford Bridge begins in earnest. Hardrada fights like a man possessed, a true warrior king leading from the front. But fighting without his armor, Harald Hardrada is struck in the throat by an English arrow. The great Viking king falls. His death shatters the Viking army. Of the more than 300 ships that brought them, fewer than 25 are needed to carry the survivors home. Harold has achieved a stunning victory. But as his army rests, devastating news arrives. The winds in the Channel have changed. William of Normandy has landed. The The conqueror has arrived. He has just won a kingdom-saving battle, only to learn a greater threat has materialized at the opposite end of his realm. Once again, Harold chooses the bold path. He will march south immediately. King Harold won the race south. He chose his ground carefully, positioning his army atop a low ridge. Senlac Hill would become the stage for England's destiny. His force was almost entirely infantry. At its heart, the housecarls who fought at Stamford Bridge, supported by the feared, fighting to defend their homes. They formed the famous Anglo-Saxon shield wall, a human fortress of wood and steel that had proven almost unbreakable for centuries. Facing them uphill, William's army was a vision of modern continental warfare, a combined arms force of archers, infantry and his trump card, cavalry. The English, silent and grimly determined, planted their standards. The Normans, confident and eager, unfurled theirs. As the sun climbed higher, the battle for the crown of England was about to be decided. The battle began with a deadly shower, but the English were prepared. The shield wall remained unbroken. Frustrated, William sent in his infantry. They were met with a terrifying silence, then brutal efficiency. The attack was bloodily repulsed. Now it was the turn of the knights. But the Saxon shield wall was unlike anything they had faced. The wave of Norman cavalry broke against the Saxon rock. As the afternoon wore on, a crisis erupted. The Breton contingent broke and fled. Seeing their enemies run, the English made a critical error. They abandoned the high ground.
I live, and by God's grace, I shall conquer. At this moment of potential disaster, Duke William showed his quality. He seized the opportunity and led a devastating countercharge.
Seeing the effectiveness of this, William turned it into a deliberate tactic. Each time, the shield wall grew a little thinner, a little weaker. As the sun began to dip, William risked everything on one final, coordinated assault. He ordered his archers to change their tactics, to aim high. The sky above the Saxon line filled with a storm of arrows. The English, focused on the charge, could not raise their shield roof, and then it happened. An arrow, fired high into the air, dropped from the sky and struck King Harold. The king was down. As the king fell, so did the spirit of his army. The shield wall finally shattered. But not all ran. The royal housecarls, bound by honor, made their last stand, selling their lives as dearly as possible. The Battle of Hastings was over. Duke William of Normandy stood victorious on the bloody ridge. On Christmas Day, William the Conqueror was crowned King of England. The Anglo-Saxon age was over. William's rule was established by force. He dispossessed the entire Anglo-Saxon aristocracy and solidified control with a massive castle-building program. Resistance was met with total annihilation. The conquest permanently transformed England. It forged a new language, bound the nation to continental Europe, and introduced the feudal system. This single battle, fought on one day in October 1066, changed England forever. The echoes of Senlac Hill are still heard in the words we speak and in the very character of the nation born from the blood and steel of Hastings. Subscribe for more epic history battles every week.